The AceGamer T50 or Pocket Wireless Controller is a controller I've seen a few times, and it was also mentioned under the IINE Pocket Controller I reviewed. Is this the controller for your pocket, or is it but a controller warped in gimmicks like these retractable sticks? Stay tuned and find out. When it comes to my first impressions, I have to say that I was already a bit surprised. From the listings and the packaging, I thought it was gonna be super cheap feeling plastics. This was not true though. It feels quite good and reminds me a little bit of the T50 I reviewed about a while ago. When it comes to the sticks, I was worried that they might be a bit loose and that when pressing them, that they would start to indent a little. But here I can say that I feel completely solid despite the retracting mechanic. One downside of the overall size, however, is the size of the buttons. I have to be a little bit careful that I don't press two of them at once when I'm in the heat of the moment. I then come to the advertised specs and to the contents of the box. The box itself is quite cheap and contains the controller, a USB-A to C cable, and a small manual which I couldn't find for this review right now. Then the specs themselves include the retractable joysticks, AVXY swapping, turbo mode, a 6-axis gyro, a 1000 Hz polling rate, and a 400 mAh battery. And all of that can be had in the colors of black and white for about $16 or $30 for both. First, let's get into the actuation force. This was where I started to be honestly surprised. A takes 100 grams, B, X and Y take 105 grams. Then the D-pad takes 155 grams for up, 145 grams for down, right and left. Start and select follow a similar course with 150 grams and 155 grams. Then L3 comes at 720 grams and R3 730 grams. This is surprisingly good. I'm actually shocked. I then of course also tested the circularity error rate. That one creeped out at around 0.4% on hardware tester and around 1% to 1.25% with the joystick tester. Not only was it not as smooth, but on hardware tester it did take a bit longer than usual. I do attribute that, however, to the polling rate. That one was around 125 Hz for Bluetooth and 300 Hz for the wired connection. I wouldn't mind the wired one so much, if it wasn't for them claiming 1000 Hz. When it comes to the general use, then I have to mirror it somewhat to the IINE Pocket Controller, as using it was fine overall, but I do struggle a bit finding a good hold thanks to the shape and flatness. This is then once again combined with the D-pad that sits flush with the shell once pressed, causing pressure on the entire thumb, which over prolonged use can cause some pain. When it comes to the sticks, however, I do like the retractable style more than what the IINE did, as there I would often touch the shells when using the sticks. This is not the case here. When it comes to the contra test, I have to report that it fails by a landslide. Despite that, I actually didn't have any problems with the D-pad while using it. My theory here, as to why that is because when you press a direction, you also press the shell, creating a sort of stabilization. I'm not the biggest fan of that extra pressure on the thumb, but in this case it is a slight benefit. When it comes to the gyro, it does work like expected. I do feel though it could be a little bit more sensitive. But overall, it's fine. In conclusion, I do not dislike the AceGamer T50, and I think it inches out just a bit over the IINE, thanks to the sticks, but it really depends on what you seek in a pocket controller. The T50 is more pocketable and the sticks are just better, while the IINE has a competitive edge with its better polling rate. I wouldn't mind keeping this one in my backpack for when I need an additional controller, like when visiting friends for a round of Mario Kart. That being said, I will not be using this one as my main controller. And that's it. I also encourage you to check out the review of the IINE Pocket Controller and to like and subscribe if I could help you decide if you want to buy this one or not.